Hello. Good afternoon. So today, as you can see, the topic says creating a full stack web application using Blazor, WASM and GraphQL. So how many of you know about Blazor or GraphQL? Okay, we have few people. And how many of you know me? Let us start with myself, then we'll move to Blazor and GraphQL also. I am Ankit. I am a software engineer working with Cisco. I am a Google developer expert for Angular and a Microsoft MVP. And I also blog at my blog ankitsharmablogs.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter. The handles are mentioned below. Now we'll start with our talk. So what we are going to do today? So we are going to create a full stack web application using Blazor, SQL Server and GraphQL. We'll create an employee record management system, and it will have features such as CRUD, which stands for create, read, update and delete. And we will also allow to filter the employee record, that is a search option, and we'll also do client-side form validation using Blazor. So the technology stack which we are going to use is Blazor WebAssembly. The short form is WASM, which is pronounced as WASM. So Blazor WASM, SQL Server for database, Entity Framework Core as our ORM, and then we have hot chocolate, banana cake pop and strawberry shake. These are not drinks. Please note that hot chocolate, banana cake pop and strawberry shake are not drink. And also this is not a mistype. So these three are third-party APIs, or I would say third-party packages which allows us to use GraphQL with Blazor. So we are going to learn about these three, and also we will learn how we can use them. First, an important question: what is GraphQL? So GraphQL is a query language for the APIs, and it allows the client to request for the data which it needs. So if you compare it with the REST API, so in REST API we have one endpoint, and if we hit the endpoint for the same input, it will always give the same output. However, in case of GraphQL, which is a client-side query language, the client can request for the data which it needs. So client has the power, not the server, which is very important, and we are going to see all of this in action. So the first few minutes will be theory, and then we are going to do a demo over there. And also the GraphQL is open source, and the apps which use GraphQL are faster and stable because the control lies with the client, not with the server. Now the important question: what is hot chocolate? So hot chocolate is an open source GraphQL server for .NET platform. So in GraphQL, we will first create a server, and then we also create a client. So hot chocolate is a package which allows you to create GraphQL server for .NET application, and it also allows us to create GraphQL endpoints. It is easy to set up, and we can easily create our application without the need to create a full-fledged server. So then we have banana cake pop. Banana cake pop is an IDE. It allows us to test and validate our GraphQL endpoint. It is integrated. When we install hot chocolate, we also install banana cake pop-up, and when you run the application, you can actually see and hit your endpoint right there, which is easy for testing. Then finally, what is a strawberry shake? So hot chocolate was the server, and strawberry is the client. So a strawberry shake allows us to create a GraphQL client for a .NET platform, and it allows us to connect with any server. And it allows us to generate a C# client for GraphQL queries. We can interact with local or remote data through GraphQL, and we can also use reactive APIs to interact with the state on the GraphQL. So we are going to use all these three tools, but before going to the demo part, we should understand few terminologies. So the important terminology in GraphQL is query and mutation. So a query is defined as a GET request, or a request which allows us to fetch data from the server. It is similar to a GET request in REST API, and it is a read-only operation. That is why it is called query. And similarly, we have mutation, and as the name said, mutation, it allows us to mutate the data or change the data. It is similar to put, delete or post operation in REST. Before we start our development, the prerequisites are to install Visual Studio 2022, and when you install Visual Studio, please select ASP and web development workload. It allows us to do Blazor development, and also we have to use SQL Server for our database. Now demo time. So I have already, I hope it is visible to all of you. The size is good. Brightness is more. Okay, I will see if I can do something. I to decrease the brightness. I don't know. Okay. Okay, this is good. No, I don't like dark mode. Dark mode is useless. Okay, so we are going to use Visual Studio. I have already created an application in the interest of time, obviously, and we are going to use repository patterns. The first step of creating a repository pattern is to create a interface which I have created. It will have all the functions for the CRUD operation. So we are going to create an employee record management system where we can have the name of employee, employee IDs, and other stuff. So there is a database I like to show you. In the database I have created two tables. The first table is called employee. Initially it is supposed to be empty, but I have added one record for the demo purpose, and then we have a table city which has a list of predefined city, and we are going to use this city table to populate a drop down list on the client side, and while adding an employee we can select the value from this drop down and we'll select the city name. So, okay. So after we have created our interface, the next step is to create our employee data access layer. Here I have implemented the interface and I have used Entity Framework Core to implement all the functions. So first is add employee function. Here I am accepting a object of type employee, which is a model. So if you go to the models, you can see here employee.cs. It has employee ID, name, city, department, and gender. And I have used the field required, which means that whenever we are creating an object of this class, the field name, city, department, and gender must be provided, otherwise we'll get an exception. So that is why I have marked it as required. Similarly, we have a city class which contains two fields, city ID and city name. The structure of class is same as the structure of the table which we have seen in database, and these models are created using DB first approach of Entity Framework Code. Now in the data access layer we have the standard method for add employee, then we have the method to get all the employee list, so we are getting all the employee, and then we have update employee. It will accept an employee record, employee object, and update the existing employee data. And then we have delete employee, it will accept employee ID and delete the data, and then we have get city, which will accept the list of cities. So these are the standard function. Then in the GraphQL folder, we have created a class called employee query resolver. So if you remember, we discussed queries in GraphQL. Queries are those operation which contains only get operation. So here we have added two queries, one to get the list of employees and one to get the list of cities. Now there are few things which is specific to GraphQL. You see GraphQL description. This particular, I think on the last row you can see the screen, and the code is visible to you guys. Last row. Can anybody confirm? It is visible? Okay, cool. So the GraphQL description allows you to provide the description of your queries or mutation. It is a plain string field. You can add anything which you want, and whenever you see it on the ID, you will see the description. Then we have use filtering. The use filtering method, use filtering attribute allows us to filter the record on the client side. So when we get the employee list, now I can filter using any field of the employee list. So we are going to see this in action. Similarly, we have get city list. In case of get city, I have only added the GraphQL description. I am not allowing filtering over here because this is a read-only field, and we are just bind it to a UI drop-down. Similar to the query, we have mutation, and as we discussed, mutation is about changing the data. So here I have added add employee, edit employee, and delete employee. And if you can see the name, it is calling all our service functions which we have created for the add employee, edit employee, and the delete employee. Okay. Now we will go to program.cs file. This particular line of code is very important. Please understand it. So here I have written add GraphQL server, which allows us to create the GraphQL server when our application is running. Then register service, that is our interface. So it allows us to register the service and register DB context. So this is the DB context name. It is required to do that so that the GraphQL can work in sync with the EF code. If you will not do that, then you will see that the application start crashing, or you might see that we will get some error related to entity framework. Then we have add query type and add mutation type. If you have more than one queries and you have more than one mutation, then you can use multiple add query type and multiple add mutation type. And finally, since we have added use filtering in our employee query, we have added add filtering. So this is all the GraphQL server configuration. At the end, we have added this particular line. Here we are configuring the endpoint using the map GraphQL function. So it allows us to access GraphQL server. The default endpoint is your base address of the application / GraphQL. If you want to change the endpoint, then in this map GraphQL function, you can pass any other string. For example, let's say I want it to be CSharpCorner GraphQL server, something like that. Then in the map GraphQL function, we can pass that particular string value. So we'll go to the client side quickly. In the client side, I have added the pages. So here we have added a employee data component. The employee data component allows us to fetch the data, and then we can show the data in a tabular format on the UI. And if you can see that, here there is a function. So let's say you can see that it says employee client dot fetch employee list dot execute async. So from where we are getting this particular value, from where this is coming. So if you remember, we discussed about the client strawberry shake. So I have already configured strawberry shake over there. Once you configure the strawberry shake client and you add your GraphQL queries and you build the application, it will automatically create a generated folder, and inside the generated folder you can see this particular class. This is generated by GraphQL client strawberry shake, and we are not supposed to change it. And we are going to use the function which it has created inside this particular class. So this is a very big file, and it contains all the type definition on the function definition, and in our component we are going to call that. So employee client is the name of the class, fetch employee list is the name of the function, and we are executing it. We get the data result, and whenever the GraphQL returns the data, it always contains an object called data. So that is why we are checking result.data, because this is the object which contains all our data. If it is not null, we are creating a local object. Similarly, we are using a filter employee. So filter employee, it will provide you a search functionality, and whenever you perform a search, this function will be called and it will filter the list of data and then bind it to the UI. And then we have the delete employee, which it will delete the employee data. In the client, in the Razor page, I have created the HTML. This is the important point which you can see that. Here I have used a binding in Blazor. So if you see that, we are binding the value to search a string property, and we are binding on input. And on keyup, we are calling the filter employee. So as you type, the filtering, this function will be called and filtering will happen as we type. You don't have to press enter or any other button. So that is how we can do data binding in Blazor. And then if the data is not null, we are using a table to show the data, and every row has two action field, one for edit. So this is the edit, and then one for delete employee. And then I have added a add edit employee Razor component. This contains a form. This form will allow you to add or edit the employee data, and this also contains client side validations. So how we are doing that? Let's see this. So in the template, we are using the edit form component. So the edit form component is provided by Blazor to create forms, and inside that we can create our forms of our choice. Important point to note is line number 13, line number 20, and line number 31. You can see I have used input text, input select. It is not the standard HTML tags. input text tag is provided by Blazor, and it allows us to do two-way data binding and also allows us to bind the error methods. So input text, input select, and similarly there are multiple predefined custom tags provided by Blazor. So whenever you are creating a form using Blazor, we should always use these tags. And this particular line number 9, data annotations validator, it will allow us to validate against our forms. So if you remember, when we created the model, we have provided required field. So when we submit the form, if the model is not fulfilled, like if you miss some things, the required field will fail, and this data annotation validator component will kick in, and you will see the error on the screen. So this is how the code is working. So now I am going to show you a output. So let's click F5 and we'll see. Okay, first of all, we are going to see the GraphQL server. So what is the default endpoint? /GraphQL. So this is banana cake pop. This is the IDE. This is called banana cake pop. Here you can see there are 3 tabs. First is operation, schema reference, schema definition. So first of all, we are going to see the schema definition tab. In the schema definition tab, you can see the details of all the schema of your of your GraphQL types. Here you can see employee query resolver, get the list of movies. You remember we have provided this information. Where is my class? Let's see. Here. So here we have provided a description. So all those data is coming in the schema definition. So this allows you to check what kind of schema you have on the server and what are the values or what are the things provided over there. Then another tab is schema reference. This is very important, and it will allow you to understand the code. On the right side, you can see employee query resolver, which was the name of our query. It has 2 queries, one for city list, one for employee list. Similarly, if you go to employee mutation resolver, it has 3 mutation, one for add employee, delete employee, edit employee. And if you see, it also says the description, add a new employee data, and what is the input it is taking. So if you go to our server and if you go to our mutation, you can see that this particular add employee mutation contains accept a employee type as input. This is the injection for our service, so this will not go into the definition. So if you see, the same information is provided over here. So this means this particular IDE banana cake pop will give you all the information of the complete type system of your GraphQL server. Now operations. So let me clear all of this. Now if you want to perform some operation, you can do it over there here, and you can see the results. So let's do something. So first of all, we are going to use a query. So we'll type query, and you can see it will also show you the IntelliSense. So if I write query, so we are going to do query. Which query? City list. If you remember, we have added city list, and city list has 2 fields, city ID and city name. You can see this via IntelliSense. If you run, you can see all the data coming over here. Now you can see that it comes under a object, named data. This is set by default from GraphQL. Every GraphQL output comes under the object with name data, and it contains the city list and the data which we have asked for. Now if you remember, I said the client has the complete control over the data which they want. Now imagine I do not want city ID. I just have to remove it from here, and if I run the application, we will see only the city name, we will not see the city ID. And this is the power of GraphQL. The client has the power to ask for what they need, and server does not have any power, and that is the most important benefit, and it also allows you to save on network cost. So if you are working on enterprise level application, every network call and every single word on network adds to your network payload, and again it adds to your expenses in one way or another. So GraphQL will help you to decrease that expenses by allowing the client to ask for only what they need. I will quickly show you the output of the employee. So again query, and employee list. And what are the fields we have? Employee ID, name, gender, department, city. Run the application. Right now in the database there is only one employee which I have added, so you can see all the field. Again, here we can ask for anything we need. Let us see that I do not need employee ID, I do not need department. I only need this name, gender and city. If I run, you can see it is only returning me name, gender and city field. And this is the power of GraphQL. It gives the power to the client to ask for what they need. So this is for banana cake pop. Now one important point to note this, that there is only one API endpoint is hit. There is no multiple API endpoint, right, like REST. In REST you have multiple endpoint like add employee, delete employee, edit employee. Here we have only one endpoint, that is GraphQL. So this is our endpoint name. So if you check in the networks tab, I will show you that right away. Let's go to the home page of the application which we have created. Let me inspect it. Go to network and load the page. In the network tab, you can see that where is that GraphQL? Only one endpoint is hit, and in the response we are getting the data of the employee list. So there is only one graph endpoint always. So we have created our application. Now I am going to show you the demo of the complete CRUD operation. So we will add an employee name. We'll use the name Rahul, and there is a reason for that. I will let you know. And department, let's say marketing, and city, my favorite city. Okay, no, we are in Delhi, so Delhi is my favorite city. So I have added it, and it is added pretty quickly. Now I forgot to show you one thing. We'll show it again. I go to this page and I click on save. You see, this is a client side validation. These fields are required. If you do not provide it, you will see an error. You will see, and if you see that the field, the border of the field is red. This is provided by that custom input type of the Blazor, like inputs. I told you about the select input and the input type. So that is how it is provided, the beautiful red border. So it says that fields are required. So I am going to add Rajiv, gender male, department dev, and city Bangalore, save. Now you can see that I have added 3 employee. You can see the records, and we have edit and delete field corresponding to each employees. Now if I want to edit it, let's say if I go to this person Rajiv and I change the department from dev to, let's say, finance, and city from Bangalore to, let's say, Mumbai, I click on save, you can see that it is updated in real time. So that is how we can perform the CRUD operation. Final thing which I want to show you is the filter. So here you can see that we have a field which says search employee by name. It will work as we type, and that is why I have added the name Rahul and Rajiv. First 2 characters are same. Now let's say, and it is also case independent. So if I add Rahul, RA, you can see that 2 fields are coming. If I add H, see what happens. This one is coming. Now if I add Rahul, things good. If I add a space, it says no records found. Now if I clear it using this box, the field is cleared and we are seeing all the data over here. And this, all of this is happening entirely on the client side, hence it is super fast. So that is how we can create a CRUD operation using Blazor WASM and GraphQL. That is all from my side. Thank you.